Ladies and gentlemen, I am sorry that we are not doing this as often as we used to. Now, I'm still going through and breaking down teams every single day in personalized podcasts for new members of flockfantasy.com. But to be honest with you, with how much we're streaming on Flock Fantasy, it is difficult to continue to stream here every single day like we were earlier in the offseason. I'm going to try to pick it up. We still have some Dynasty teams that we need to be looking at, and I'll try to start doing them more on the live stream if y'all are wanting rather than personalized podcast. But anyway, let's go ahead and let's get this going. Thank you so much for everybody coming to hang out with us. Really excited to do this. Of course, if you have not done so already, drop a like on this live stream. Subscribe to the channel if you play Dynasty Fantasy Football. And of course, if you want to get your team featured on a live stream like this or broken down in a personalized podcast by yours truly, if you want to get all my Dynasty Fantasy Football rankings, you can always do so by signing up for flockfantasy.com using promo code FLOCK, and yours truly will go through and break down a team of yours on one of these streams or in a personalized podcast. But let's go ahead. Let's dive into team one here. This one for Brad. Brad, thank you so much, my man, for being a member of the vlog, saying, "Sup, Mason, entering into year 3 of our Dynasty League. It's a 10-team half PPR. I've managed to miss the playoffs the last 2 years with this roster, even though we had the most points back-to-back against." Okay, now this is the main issue, my friend. I almost don't even want to look at the offensive side of your team here, because clearly if you have had back-to-back seasons with the most points against, you need to play better defense, okay? I don't know if you need to be sending messages to the matchups that you have that week. Send the owner a message. Tell him you're going to beat him. Do whatever you can to get in his head to make sure that he does not submit the correct starting lineup. Obviously, all jokes aside, extremely bad luck, my man. We've already completed the rookie draft for 2023. There's an opposing team in a rebuild with Chubb and Amari that I was thinking of targeting to go all in, but wasn't sure if it was worthwhile. Thanks. So thank you so much, my man, for being a member of the flock. But before we even look at the players with this team, what I do want to look at instead will be the league format that we are playing in. So we already know it's going to be a 10-teamer where we are going to be starting 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, a tight end, and 1 flex. So this is going to be an incredibly shallow format. I mean, in the majority of leagues that I play in, they're all either start 11 or start 12. And I think the majority of leagues that other people are playing in that watch this are playing in start 10 leagues. And if we're going to be comparing this league here in particular, it's a 10-team format where we're starting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 guys. So you are starting 90 total players across the entire league. What this is going to lead to, in my mind, is depth not being as important. And instead, we would rather focus in on trying to go out there and get some bona fide studs for this team, my friend. So I know we were talking about going ahead and trading for a player like Amari Cooper or trading for a player like Nick Chubb. To be honest with you, in this format in particular, Amari Cooper's not really going to move the needle for me. I would consider Amari Cooper a little bit more of a depth wide receiver where I definitely think he'll help a contending team. If you are in that deeper format where it's a 12-teamer where you're starting 11 guys on a week-to-week basis, yes, if you're a contender, go trade for Amari and you should make a real impact in one of your flex spots. Here, I don't necessarily know if that's the case though. Now, going over to quarterback, we have Lamar. Love Lamar in a 1 quarterback dynasty league because in a 1 QB league, you don't really care too much about the long-term floor, and instead we're more so looking at the short-term ceiling. And yeah, I don't really know what you're going to get from Lamar Jackson when he's 30 years old. I mean, I don't know how his playing style is going to translate in particular, but what I do know is Lamar Jackson for 3 straight seasons now has averaged over 60 rushing yards per game, which means when he is healthy and when he is the starting quarterback for the Baltimore Ravens over the next few seasons, you should be able to just rack up an immense amount of points in fantasy. Doesn't really matter because you also have Burrow. We're just elite at quarterback. Going over to running back, we're currently sitting with CMC as well as Ramondre Stevenson. Going down to the flex, we have Alvin Kamara. So, I mean, definitely a spot where we are looking at contending assets, right? I mean, this is not a team that we want to say, okay, well, let's pivot over to playing in 2024. We have the phenomenal cornerstone assets in Justin Jefferson, in Jamar Chase. Let's play for the long term. If you were to pivot to a long-term approach and maybe punt this next season and go with more so a productive struggle, then we would have to go through, we would have to sell Christian McCaffrey. We'd have to go through and we'd have to sell Ramondre Stevenson. We'd have to sell Alvin Kamara. These are not guys that are going to see their dynasty value increase from here, but instead you're going to be riding out the production. So they're the perfect assets for a contending team. Going down to the bench, we have Alexander Mattison, Rachaad White, so some quality depth just in case you actually have a suspension coming for Alvin Kamara. Now, going over to wide receiver, we have Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Calvin Ridley in the starting lineup. And then going down to the bench, we have Mike Evans as well with Jacoby Myers. So, I mean, we have more than enough depth at wide receiver. We have the elite tight end in Travis Kelce, which further shows that this team needs to be one that plans on contending this next season. I mean, there's nothing that you could do that would make less sense than punting over to 2024. I know you weren't saying that, but I'm just going through in every dynasty team that I look at, we are wanting to see what kind of path are we taking for the next season. Does it make sense to commit to the contending status immediately? Does it make sense to maybe go through and map out the potential to rebuild if something goes wrong? To be honest, there's no rebuild as a possibility with this team whenever we have, Ramondre, CMC, Travis Kelce, Alvin Kamara, Alexander Mattison, Mike Evans. All these assets are assets that we want to be winning with right away this season. So when we go ahead and when we look at the future picks that we have, very, very rarely will I ever tell someone to go through and trade a future first. In my mind, it's not something that we're trying to do. In my mind, we are trying to accumulate these future picks. And I'm not even saying to trade this future first right now. I think that a lot of contending teams will come to the point where it makes sense for them to sell their 2024 first, for them to get points into the starting lineup immediately that will help them win right now. But at the same time, we have to be looking at the time to sell that pick. If we were to go through and sell that 2024 first right now for Nick Chubb, for instance, right? We were to go through and we were to package Alvin Kamara with the 2024 first, go get Nick Chubb, which makes us probably the strongest team in the league on paper. Yeah, that could be great, right? 100%. In reality, I would rather wait. I would wait until we are in the season when we understand what this team truly needs. Because who knows, maybe Kamara isn't suspended this next year. Or maybe we're sitting with CMC, Ramondre Stevenson, both those running back ones, and then all of a sudden Dalvin Cook is cut, Dalvin Cook is traded, and we have Alexander Mattison popping off as well as a high-end RB2. Maybe Rachaad White improves going into year 2. So just because on paper it would make sense for us to go through and trade for Nick Chubb right this second, if you were to sell that 2024 first, which would lock us in and remove a lot of the long-term flexibility that we would have in terms of making a trade for exactly what we may need during the season, because of course, during the year, fantasy football is very unpredictable. We don't really know exactly what we'll need. If we were to make that move, we need to be charging a premium. If we can sell the 2024 first and get Nick Chubb straight up, it probably makes sense on this team, right? Because if we were to add in Nick Chubb for essentially free, then at that point, you're in a spot where you are going to be getting probably the strongest roster in the league, while at the same time, that first round pick that we're selling is going to be like the 110, the 109, the 108, just because we're going to be so damn strong. So if we were to buy a veteran between Amari or Chubb, we are going to be going with Nick Chubb. There's no reason for this team to be adding in a wide receiver like Amari Cooper, specifically with this format, especially when you're sitting there with the cornerstone pieces of Justin Jefferson and freaking Jamar Chase. Now, if we were going to be looking at making any other moves, I think what could also make a little sense, considering the fact that this is a shallower format in general, right, where you only have one flex spot, it's only a 10-team league, I'll always be interested in going through and making a 2-for-1 deal, right? I'll always be interested in taking Rachaad White here, who maybe makes a little sense for a different team to go through and trade for. But on our roster, he's not really doing much for us, right? It's a shallow format. We're a true contender. We have elite running backs at the top. We don't really need this depth. We already have more than enough. Like if you could go through and package together maybe a Rachaad White as well as Alvin Kamara and go get an upgrade that way. Or maybe we want to try to get a cheaper price point on Nick Chubb, and instead of trading a first-round pick for Nick Chubb straight up, we try selling Rachaad White and the future second and go get Nick Chubb that way. That could also be a move that makes a lot of sense for this team in particular, my friend. But overall, I think it's a phenomenal roster. I think you should be really excited about it and should be ready to contend this next season. It's just more so, when do we sell our future first, if at all? On top of that, what kind of prototype of a player are we targeting? We're going to be targeting a player like Nick Chubb that actually has the ability to move the needle for us, whereas Amari Cooper just simply doesn't. But I really hope that was able to help you out, my friend. Again, thank you so much. I see that you are out here in the live chat, so awesome that you're able to see this. I'm still going to send a link to you personally through Discord just in case you would want to look back on this a week from now, 2 weeks from now, whenever. So yeah, I will send you a message after I get done with this live stream on Discord. But thank you so much, my friend. But real quick, we actually have a donation coming out from Chris. Thank you. Says, would you trade for DJ Moore using the 2023 105? It's a single quarterback, no tight end premium, start 3 wide receiver. Our current wide receivers are Garrett Wilson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, as well as Christian Watson. Hell to the no. The 105, you're either going to be getting Quentin Johnston or Jordan Addison. No way in hell I'm going to go through and trade Jordan Addison for DJ Moore in a dynasty format, my friend. Definitely keep the rookie pick. I mean, if it was the 106 and instead it was Zay Flowers, if it was the 107 and instead it was like Zach Charbonnet, Dalton Kincaid, then of course, a little bit of a different story. But I mean, if you're going to be getting Quentin Johnston, you 100% would rather have Johnston over DJ Moore. But let's go ahead and let's dive into our next team here. This next one going to be coming out from Komotio.eth. I believe that's how we say it. If not, I apologize, my friend. I am truly an idiot, but going to be happy to dive into this team regardless. Saying, hey, Mason, first time Mother Flocker here. So glad I finally got to join the gang. Hell yes. This is my first time playing Dynasty, and I took over a team someone abandoned last year, and I was left with the remains. It's a 10-team app PPR Superflex, and we have not drafted for this year yet. 2 quarterbacks, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, and 3 flexes. Wondering what moves I should make or who would be beneficial to draft/move up for. Any advice? Good advice. Thanks, man. Keep putting out the fire content. No, thank you so much again, my man, for joining the vlog. Super happy to have you. So first thing that we need to be looking at, of course, will be the league settings of this league. It's a 10-team league where instead of it being super flex, it's a 2 QB format. And I mean, this is something that we talk about a decent amount here, but there is a true difference between a 2 quarterback league and a super flex league. Now, back when I first started playing in Superflex, I believe it was 2016, maybe, I treated 2 quarterback formats and Superflex leagues as the same thing because I was convinced, oh, okay, well, if you're going to be a contending team, if you want a shot to actually win your league, you're going to have to start 2 quarterbacks every week regardless, even if it's not a 2 QB league, and even if it's instead just a 1 quarterback. I mean, sorry, a Superflex format. Well, in reality, it is very different, especially when you're going through and when you are looking at the trade market for those QBs. There's a big difference between throwing a wide receiver 4 into your Superflex spot during an injury fill-in or a bye week fill-in and expecting about 10 points per game compared to the regular 17 points per game that you may get from a quarterback 2 versus leaving that roster spot empty, taking a 0 there rather than the 17 points per game that we're expecting. So 2 QB league, definitely want to be bumping up quarterbacks just a bit. Now keep in mind, it's a 10-team 2 quarterback format rather than a 12-team league, which will mean quarterback's going to be easier to come by. But I mean, never going to sit here and cry about having Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. We'll be really excited about that. Now going down to the bench, we don't have a quarterback 3. Definitely would like to add in a quarterback 3, considering the fact this is a 2 QB league, not a super flex format. Actually, we have Sam Howell. If you believe in Sam Howell, I mean, I'm fine with you rolling in with Sam Howell this next season. But as we scroll down and look at the future rookie picks that we're working with, I do want to classify this team as a roster that is more likely than not looking to contend this next season. While yes, we have a future first, we do not have our own future first. So it's not as simple as saying, okay, yeah, this team doesn't look like it has the firepower to win this year. Let's go ahead and let's sell the veterans. Let's build for the long term. And let's go ahead and let's get the 101 in next year's draft and bring in Caleb Williams. Sadly, we can't do that. We don't have our own future first. That lane is no longer available to us. our thought process at this point is let's try to score points this next season. Where running back, we definitely have some upside. We have Ramondre Stevenson, James Cook. Down there on the flex, we have Khalil Herbert. So we probably have a running back one. I would say James Cook in a 12-team leagues, maybe a low-end RB2, but in a 10-team format, I'd probably classify him as an RB3. So we have potentially a running back one, a couple running back threes. And then we have, some depth. Maybe if Bijan Robinson goes down, obviously Tyler Algier can be someone that actually moves the needle for us. Going over to wide receiver, if we were sitting in a 12-team format, I'd be comfortable saying that both Drake London and Michael Pittman are both wide receiver 2s at the minimum. I would assume that they're top 24 guys. With this being a 10-team league instead, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to assume that we have 2 wide receiver 2s here. Just if we're going to go through and look at, say, underdog ADP for this next season, right? And try to get an idea of what the realistic expectations are for these guys this next year. You will see that both these wide receivers are being drafted as that borderline wide receiver 3 if you're considering the fact it's a 10-team league. You actually have Mike Williams, ADP wide receiver 23. That's a wide receiver 3 in a 10-team league. You have Drake London, wide receiver 24. That's a wide receiver 3 in a 10-team league. You have Michael Pittman, wide receiver 28. That's a wide receiver 3 in a 10-team league. So, I'm fine with this wide receiver core. I really like the long-term outlook for Drake London. Love the talent profile. But realistically speaking, if we are looking at the upcoming production that we should expect this next season, probably a little underweight here at wide receiver as well. Going over to tight end, really do like Pat Freiermuth. I'm going to sit here and talk over and over and over again about Pat Freiermuth being one of the most underrated assets in Dynasty. I would much prefer having Pat Freiermuth over someone like Dalton Kincaid, even though I understand that people probably think I'm an idiot for saying that, or at least when I say it on Twitter, people say I'm an idiot. But nonetheless, I think that if you have Pat Freiermuth here as your tight end, we should be pretty damn excited. And then going down to the bench, we do not have a lot to work with. Now, this is what's interesting, right? Because going back down to these future picks, this is the big picture thing that we have to think about and the big picture thing that we have to talk about. There are a couple different things that we could look to do at this point. Looking at the overall team, we can say when we have Josh Allen and when we have Lamar Jackson both on the same roster, we are always going to be considered a contending team. It is very difficult to look at a roster that has both Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson and say that we can't contend this next season. While at the same time, we are probably underweight at running back considering it's a 10-team format. We are probably a little underweight at wide receiver. And at the same time, if we wanted to pivot over for a long-term build and look for 2024 and beyond, we do have some young assets that are exciting to build around, right? You have Dotson going into year 2. You have Drake London going into year 2. We have exciting young pieces. So we are right there, borderline on the fence, unsure if we can really contend this season, unsure if we should possibly be looking for 2024. Going back to what we were talking about at the very top of this team, specifically when we are looking at a team that trades away its 2024 first, I think that decision is almost made for us. I think that decision is pretty much, we probably need to lean with the initial plan of contending this next season. Now we have Gizmo in the chat says, this player should get their first back for sure, not a contender in a 10-team league. Now, of course, this will be a thought process that some people have. Personally, if we are sitting with Allen as well as Lamar Jackson, I think any team can be a contender. If you get a breakout from Drake London, or you get a breakout from Jahan Dotson, you get a breakout from James Cook, if one of these players exceed expectations, this team could overall look to contend this next season if we were to sell that 2024 first. Now, is that a move that we should make today, right? We're sitting here on the fence. We don't know if we are a true contender or if we should be going and trying to get our 2024 first back and look to build for the long term. I would say instead of trying to make that decision right now, I really want to stay flexible. And unlike the team that we previously looked at, where we were willing to say this team is for sure a contender, let's push forward, let's trade away our future first, let's win this season. This team, I'm way more reluctant to say trade away any future draft capital. I would much prefer holding on to that 2024 first round pick that we have. I would much prefer evaluating our team at the beginning of the season. If we're sitting here at the beginning of the year and we're 3-1, we're 4-3, we're 3-2. If we look like we could be a true contender, but the one thing that's holding us back is maybe we need another running back. Maybe we need a better wide receiver. Then at that point, I think that first round pick that we have that is not our own, we can look to go and try to get the most value that we can for it. Now, if it's an early first, of course, you better believe we're charging whoever's trading for it a premium. If it's a later first, I mean, in general, if a team's looking to rebuild, they're going to trade for any first round pick that they can get their hands on, but we're just not going to get a massive, massive haul for it, right? So say we get to week 5, we're 3-2, we need a running back. At that point, I wouldn't mind taking James Cook and that future first and going ahead and bringing in a running back. Maybe if Travis Etienne is off on a hot start and is healthy and the Jags look great, right? Going and getting Travis Etienne and getting that immediate upgrade in the starting lineup now and really pushing to contend this season. Specifically because we don't have our 2024 first. Whereas if we get to the beginning of the year and all of a sudden before we even get this thing started, Lamar Jackson goes down with the high ankle sprain, or Drake London tears an ACL, if something happens before the season even starts, or if something happens week 1, week 2, then at that point, I want the flexibility to make sure that we are holding on to those future picks. And then at that point, possibly going ahead and looking to trade Ramondre Stevenson for our 2024 first round pick back, and then looking to burn it down and build for 2024. So I definitely want to keep the flexibility with this team to keep both options open for us, just because it's difficult to sit here and say, yeah, this team's for sure a contender this next season. But I really hope that was able to help you out in some way. My friend, again, thank you so much for being a member of the flock and supporting the channel. I really hope we were able to help you out. And as always, if there's anything that I can do for you, please do not hesitate to reach out to me and let me know. I'd be super happy to help out in any way that I can, my friend. Okay. Now, Tyler says, I bought the Flock Fantasy subscription and I use code FLOCK because I got 30% off, but I don't see the roster submissions tab, but I see the other tabs. I was wondering any way I could fix that. Okay. So if you signed up to Underdog Fantasy, first thing is, my friend, go ahead and join the Discord and send your name in the join here section. Once you send your name in the join here section, it will take just a day or two for the developers to go through and link your flockfantasy.com account with your Discord account. And then for everybody who signed up with promo code FLOCK, Mother Flocker tier, they should have roster submissions open under the Mason's Flock tab. And you go ahead and you send that team in there under roster submissions, my friend. Now, if you have any issues, any confusion, please don't hesitate to reach out to me on Discord or send it in the site recommendations /issues. Send it in that tab as well, and the developers will look at it, and they'll help you out with whatever you need, my friend. But let's go ahead, and we're going to skip by this team because this is an MFL team, and we'll go over and look at Invictus, who says, good afternoon, Mason. This will be year 9 for this local home 12-team, 1 quarterback format. Crazy, my friend. Kind of a different scoring. 1 point per 5 yards for rushing receiving. 1 point per reception. 6 points per any touchdown. And 0.25 points per passing completion. Have come in second twice and finally broke through last year and took home the championship. Hell yes. So if you're telling me 3 out of 9 years or 3 out of 8 years so far, we've either been second or first place. I mean, I don't want to say it's a dynasty, obviously, if we've only won once, but I mean, pretty damn solid. Hard to have better results than that. But pushed all our chips in about a month ago and traded away Javonte Bateman, the 112. Oh, okay. I do not like this. Our 2025 and 2026 first for the 101. Okay. Not going to say this is a bad price point on Bijan Robinson. Of course, it is almost impossible to have a bad price to trade for Bijan Robinson. But at the same time, I just really want to be on record saying it is not a good idea to go ahead and trade away your 2025 and 2026 first round picks this far out in advance. Because all of a sudden, I mean, if you were in a spot where, 2 years from now, right? It's 2025. We're not that strong. And we'll look at this team in a second, and I'll break it down and say exactly how this may happen. We have no option to fix our roster. You are so locked in to having to contend this season that you're not able to go through. You're not able to trade away your veterans, get back the 101 in the next year's draft, and really jumpstart your path to contending yet again. So it's nice in the short term, of course, but in the long term, it can put you in a very, very, very tough spot. Now, anyway, we just drafted Bijan 101, Josh Downs at the 212, Will Anderson 307, Eric Gray 312. We still have rounds 4 to 7 to go. I think my biggest weakness is our wide receiver room and maybe just overall depth. And this is going back to what we were talking about previously. When we trade away that 2025 first, when we trade away that 2026 first, it is going to be so difficult to replenish our depth over the next 3 seasons that if we're already having issues with depth today, it's almost going to be an impossible issue to solve whenever we're looking 2 years from now. And I know I'm Mr. Doom and Gloom here before we even pull up the team. But still, I just want to be on record. Please take that into consideration with any advice you may throw my way. Thanks. And then the points you see in the screenshots below are 2020 scoring totals for reference. Okay, love to see that. Love to see that. Okay, let's pull up this team. And first thing I want to discuss, my friend, is IDP, and I owe you a big time apology. Of course, I know who Joey Bosa is. I know he's pretty damn good. I know Aaron Donald is pretty damn good. Okay, I know these defensive players, but I personally don't play an IDP. I understand that it's a lot of fun, but sadly, I'm not going to be able to give you a ton of insight on what I have to say here on what my personal stance is. So I am very sorry, my friend. I'm only going to be able to look at the offensive side of the ball, which I do owe you a big time apology for. But I will say overall, from an offensive standpoint, if there was ever going to be a league where I'd be fine lacking depth, probably be this one. We're only starting 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, a tight end, and a flex. So we're only starting 8 offensive guys, right? Here, quarterback, we have Mahomes. So it doesn't matter what we do. It doesn't matter if we trade our future first-round picks out all the way to 2040. We're still going to have a quarterback issue solved. Mahomes is just giving us so much upside and security at the position. Now, going down to the bench at quarterback, we have Jimmy G. We have Trey Lance. So, we even have a better quarterback than Mahomes here with Trey Lance. I have no idea why you have him on the bench, my man. Now, going over to running back, we have Bijan Robinson, Saquon Barkley at RB. So, and then Joe Mixon down there at the flex. Obviously, adding Bijan Robinson in this team makes it look like we're probably going to go back-to-back, right? It makes it look like we probably have the strongest team in the league. We're most likely going to go out there and dominate, especially in a format like this where you're getting 1 point per 5 rushing/receiving yards. Now, wide receiver, we have Amari, Godwin, Keenan Allen. Going down to the bench, we don't have much depth, as you're already mentioning. We do have DJ Moore, which is just fine, but, it is what it is. Tight end, we have George Kittle, David Njoku, which we're excited about. But I want to say, overall, this is a team where we are set up to win this next season. I don't think depth is too big of an issue, specifically because this is an extremely shallow starting lineup, but that's for this next season. I don't think depth is too much of an issue for this next year, my friend. Now, at the same time, I just want to outline how dangerous it is to go through and trade away our 2025 and 2026 first-round picks. So right now, Joe Mixon is on the cliff, right? I think Mixon will probably be productive this next season. I think Mixon will most likely contribute to you winning your league this next year. But Joe Mixon was drafted in 2017. While, yes, he was an extremely young running back at the time of that NFL draft, the same time, Joe Mixon is turning, 27 this next month, will be 28 for next season. Joe Mixon right now is going into his age. I'm sorry, he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. He is going into his 7th season this next year, which, like I said, I think he can be productive this next season. But as he goes into his 8th season in 2024, when he doesn't have a guaranteed contract with the Cincinnati Bengals, in 2024, Joe Mixon could be the same as how we're viewing Ezekiel Elliott right now. That is entirely a possibility. Saquon Barkley, I think we have a year or two left. I mean, with Barkley, instead of being drafted in 2017, he was drafted in 2018. I think Saquon Barkley is going to be in a similar mold to Joe Mixon next offseason as Mixon is now, but I do think Barkley is a little better. Bijan Robinson, obviously, we were completely fine with for the long term. Now, going over to Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper was drafted in 2015. If we're going to go ahead and pull up the contract that you have for Amari Cooper, well, he's in a pretty good situation for this next season. And at the same time, I mean, hell, I think he can help you win this year. In 2024, Amari Cooper could easily be off the Cleveland Browns. Dependent on how Amari Cooper plays this next season, Amari Cooper will be going into year 9, and they could save $12 million for moving on from him. It is not an impossibility to see Amari Cooper not with the Cleveland Browns this next season. Chris Godwin was drafted in 2017, the same year as Joe Mixon. With Godwin, I don't necessarily think that you're going to see a serious fall off. He plays wide receiver. The position should have some more longevity. But at the same time, Godwin's also a declining asset. Where is he 2 years from now? George Kittle is going into his age 30 season. Of course, if he's Travis Kelce, you don't need to worry about anything. But at the same time, what's the actual probability that George Kittle turns into Travis Kelce? Keenan Allen this season is going into year 10 of his NFL career. In 2024, I think it is bold to assume that you get anything from Keenan Allen. So we're just talking 2024 here. 2024, I don't think this team's a contender. I think this team wins the league this season or is the favorite to win this league. But Barkley will probably be a little less appealing next year than he is now. Amari Cooper will, in my mind, definitely be less appealing. Chris Godwin will, depending on the quarterback there, maybe about the same, maybe a little more appealing if he has Caleb Williams going over, for instance. Keenan Allen, definitely less appealing. George Kittle, most likely less appealing. Joe Mixon, definitely less appealing. Going down to the bench, I mean, we don't exactly know what to expect with a couple of these rookies like Josh Downs. I mean, DJ Moore was drafted in 2018 as well. Now, DJ Moore is still incredibly young, but DJ Moore is going into year 6 of his NFL career. Going into year 7, I don't think DJ Moore is going to get better. And the primary issue that you have with this team is if we traded away our 2025 first-round pick and we traded away our 2026 first-round pick, if we aren't contending next year, like if a couple of these players fall off and we don't have enough depth to backfill, we can't draft anybody in the 2024 class, right? We can't draft anybody in the 2025 class. We can't even trade away those picks. We can't burn it down. We can't look at a long-term approach at that point. You're going to be stuck as like a middling team in the middle of the road with no future picks over the next 2 seasons starting next year. And that is just a very, very dangerous place to be in. Now, in terms of actionable advice that we have right this second, to be honest with you, I don't have much. To be honest with you, I think that you're most likely the favorite to win this next year. If something happens where you get an injury to like Joe Mixon and you feel like you don't have enough depth, the first thing I do is go and take a rookie like Josh Downs, try to just trade him for like Rashad Penny, just anybody to backfill in, anybody that can help us win the title this year. Because the goal is we go back-to-back, we win the title this season. That way you say, Mason, F you. I don't care how bad this team is in 2025. I don't care how bad this team is in 2026. At the end of the day, I won the league this year. Those winnings are going to pay for those dues next year, the year after, the year after, the year after. I'm getting rich here, and you're sitting here talking about meaningless stuff like a broke loser. We hope that is the case. That is what we're going for. So if anything goes wrong with this team, we are going to go through, we're going to take the young assets that we have, such as Josh Downs, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to pivot and try to put Band-Aids on the roster to try to win this season. After that, next year when 2027 first-round picks open up to be available to trade, All I ask is, for the love of God, do not trade away that 2027 first. Do not trade away that 2028 first to try to stay in the mix and to try to keep it afloat. You're probably eventually going to just end up having to burn this down in 2025 or so and be very bad for like 1 to 2 years. If you win this year, it doesn't matter. But then hopefully in 2027, we can earn the 101 and we can be right back as that contender. But again, thank you so much for being a member of the flock, my friend. Really do appreciate you. Really hope you're able to get something from this. I know I was probably just an ass the entire time, which I definitely have to give you an apology for. But again, thank you everybody for hanging out with us in this live stream. I have a meeting with everybody on flockfantasy.com in about 20 minutes. But after that is done, I will be live streaming on the Flock Fantasy YouTube channel at 7. And of course, if you want to get your Dynasty team broken down on a podcast like this, you can always do it on flockfantasy.com. Promo code FLOCK, 30% off, and that's how you're going to get yours truly to go through and include one of these teams on a live stream like this or in a personalized podcast through DM. But thank you. Really do appreciate you, ladies and gentlemen, and really do hope you all have a great day, and I get to see you in the live stream tonight at 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern on the Flock Fantasy YouTube channel.